All right, let's call this meeting to order on March 22nd, 2023. Public information as start with roll call. Really? Here. Thank you, first. Ready to go over to Mary Andrews. Purpose of the public meeting is to inform and provide the public with the opportunity to ask questions or to express views with respect to development proposals. Council are here to observe and listen to your comments. However, they will not make any decisions this evening. Township request you please notify by email. Planning at Wilson.ca or by phone at 519-763-1226. Extension 4. If you wish to be on record and like to be notified of future hearings and decisions regarding these applications. Please note, the meeting is video and audio recorded. All electronic meetings are uploaded to the municipality's YouTube page. There are speaking to participate in the meeting by electronic means. You're consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. As the chair, I'm informing you that the council makes a decision. Should you disagree with that decision, Planning Act provides you the opportunity to appeal this application to the Ontario Land Tribunal for a hearing. Please note that if a person in the public body does not make formal submission to a public meeting or written submission to the town when the decision is made, the person in the public body is not entitled to appear to appeal the decision of the township of Wilson to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the person in the public body does not make a formal submission to a public meeting or make a written comments to the township of Wilson before the decision is made. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing on appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the court, there are reasonable grounds to do so. You may wish to model township staff regarding further information on the appeal process. Planning Act requires that at least one public meeting be held for each development proposal. The format of this public meeting is as follows. The applicant or agent will present the purpose and details of the application and any further relevant information. Following this, the public can obtain clarification, ask questions, express their views on the proposal. Members of the public are permitted 10 minutes each to ask questions and express their views. This time limit is imposed to provide each member of the public an opportunity to speak. Council will then have an opportunity to ask clarification questions. The applicant and county planning staff will attempt to answer questions or respond to concerns this evening. If this is not possible, the applicant and or staff will follow up to obtain this information. Response will be provided when this matter is brought to order and valued by council at a later date. This public meeting involves an application by Wellington Motor Trade. Zoning bylaw application D14/WBL 279 5848 Ontario. Wellington Motor Trade. Section 7, Section 8 Park Lot 24 Park Road known as 128 Brockridge, so purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to amend the town of new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018. Rezone the land from highway commercial special provision 89 or active HT 89. Site specific industrial zone prevent all uses within the zone, including the warehouse and transportation terminal. Most uses include a warehouse building, office building, employee parking, trailer parking, loading spaces, and associated landscaping and buffer strip. Also includes entrances on Rock Road South and Gilmore Road. And be served by a private well septic system. The clerk, for the whitewash, please have the owner slash operating panels to explain the proposal.
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff, members of the public, those attending in person and virtually. My name is Pierre Chauvin. I'm a planning consultant with the firm MHBC Planning out of Kitchener. I'll try to speak up I understand it's my voice isn't that great, but I'll try to project. And by all means, raise your hand throughout if it dips down throughout the presentation. I'm here on behalf of the applicants, the Wellington Group of Company. That was with me this evening is Mark Lunchoff, who is a president with the company. And this evening, I'll just try to go through what we're proposing. We have some slides to illustrate what we're proposing. Also, we've heard and I've read all the numerous letters and comments, and I've tried to summarize some of those comments and try to help provide a response to those. And I'm sure as we listen this evening, we will have probably some more questions to answer following this, and certainly look forward to that opportunity. So I don't need to say next slide. It's in my hands apparently. So who is the Wellington Group of Companies? Well, they're a logistics company that manages sort of the supply chain and the process solutions in terms of sort of storing goods, moving goods, and really it's the storing the materials and moving throughout that system. They've got 11 locations throughout North America, and they're based out of Puslinch, so they are local. And they're currently located on McLean Road, and they're looking to relocate here and help try to consolidate their operations. And this will be one of their new headquarters. So there are certainly a local company employing a number of local employees, and certainly look to invest more into this community. Again, as I said, they're looking to relocate here and to increase their warehousing opportunities and provide a more state-of-the-art facility than some of their other operations. So just a bit of background in terms of where we are, and I may approach the screen for those who are on virtually, but the address is 128 Brock Road. I'll call it the sort of southeast corner of Gilmore, which is running sort of east-west, and north-south is Brock Road. This is the property identified in red. It's an irregular shaped property, sort of a flag-shaped property. It's got a lot of frontage, over 380 meters of frontage along Brock Road, and a bit of frontage, about 70 meters along Gilmore. And all told, there's about 6 hectares of land there. It's adjacent, as you know, to the settlement area of Aberfoyle, which is outlined in yellow on this image, and also sort of at the terminus of existing industrial lands that you're all quite familiar with along Brock Road. The reason why they're locating here is it's ideal access. Obviously, everybody knows that Brock Road has immediate access to the 401, and with the trucking industry, this is a perfect location for that. These lands have been sitting vacant for some time, and albeit for highway commercial uses, have always been zoned for a number of years as highway commercial. This is really an opportunity here to see these lands develop for this type of use. Next slide. So what we're proposing is a warehouse and a logistics hub for the transportation of freight. It'll include over a 200 square foot warehouse area with a 3-story office building that'll be connected by a sort of a cantilever or catwalk across the main entrance. They intend to employ over 107 employees here. Sorry, 150 employees. There'll be space for over 170 parking spaces, 123 tractor parking spaces as well. The operation is not a shift work. It operates currently from 7 to 7. That will continue with this proposed operation. There may be, and depending on how trucks travel, as you know, there's unforeseen circumstances. There may be the odd delivery after those hours. And so sometimes there may be the odd truck that comes in after those hours and may have to leave late. Just in terms of what this looks like, again, here is Brock Road at the bottom of the image here, Gilmore on the top, sort of left-hand side of the image, large warehouse facility. There's the office here with that catwalk I referred to. The main truck entrance is off of Brock Road. This is only for truck entrance. only. There will be no truck access off of Gilmore Road. The access that is proposed off of Gilmore Road is entirely for employees. And along that stretch, we've tried to minimize or push a lot of that parking area away from Gilmore to allow for a lot of landscaping and screening of that parking, not only along Gilmore, but also eventually along Brock. Now, there is limited opportunity for a lot of landscaping along Brock. We are looking at trying to work with the county. It is a county road, probably landscape within the right of way, but that requires our permission. And I say there's limited opportunity because we have our septic system located along Brock Road. And the reason why it's located there is largely because of the soil conditions that we have on site. And it's down gradient from most of the uses. This is going to be a tertiary septic system. If you're not familiar with that, this is the higher level of septic system and has a higher effluent reduction rate than a typical conventional septic system. This will require province's approval at the end of the day to get that septic system design approved. So in terms of sort of the general layout of the site, that's essentially how it's laid out. I should note that there's also a noise wall proposed along this boundary and which will wrap around here. I'll speak to this later, but we had to complete a noise study, and with that that analysis, they concluded that there's a need for a 2-meter wall to address the noise issues projected from the loading spaces from the warehouse facility, as well as the parking traffic as well. This is just a rendering of what, an artistic rendering of what we propose to build. This is a view looking from Brock Road. Again, this will be the warehouse component with the cantilever walkway connecting the warehouse to the 3-story office, which is where they'll have all their staffing and for the entire operation. So what we're asking for, right now, these lands are within what is called a special policy area, the Puslinch Economic Development Area. And it has a broad policy framework that essentially allows economic activity or employment opportunities and predominantly locations for businesses and industries. So the official plan, the county official plan, provides the broad policy framework and essentially permits this use in a broad sense. The zoning that's in place on these lands currently is a highway commercial zone with special provisions. This is that special 89, which currently does not permit warehouses. It does permit things like conference rooms, meetings, professional office, garden centers, restaurants, a retail store, a specialty food store, recreational and entertainment facilities. So a pretty broad range of existing uses in that highway commercial, however, not warehouse in what we're proposing. We are proposing to rezone it industrial, which will permit, and the intent is to permit this proposed development. And so which again, would implement the designation of this economic development area special policy. I should note there is, and some of you may know, there is a small wetland feature at the back of the property. So as part of this application, we are not only rezoning for this particular use, but we will also be rezoning the wetland feature and its setbacks as a natural heritage zone to, again, protect that feature. If I'll just back up a bit, this is where that wetland is. And so you can see we've isolated that feature, and that will be zoned a natural heritage zone category. Let's move forward. So as part of our application, we had a pre-consultation meeting with the county and a township, and they've identified a number of studies that we needed to prepare, which this lists those various studies. These are still being reviewed, some of which have been peer reviewed and are still being reviewed. There's obviously our planning justification report. We prepared a conceptual site plan that you see here today, and it's being revised as we speak, as we get new information, as we hear about comments. That even tonight, there may be further changes as a result. We prepared an environmental impact study to address the wetland issue, as I spoke of, a servicing and stormwater management report. a servicing report to deal with the septic and the water, a geotechnical investigation and a hydrogeological assessment to deal with the groundwater regime, a transportation impact study to address the impacts of this proposed development on the current infrastructure and road network. And I should say that as part of those conclusions of that traffic impact study, the only improvement that was required is a northbound right turn lane into the truck entrance off of Brock Road. All other road intersections and traffic or the road networks were identified to be suitable and to accommodate this proposed development. Having said that, that is still being reviewed by the county, and we're certainly waiting to hear the comments back from the review agencies on that. I mentioned we did a noise study. Again, that is being peer reviewed by the township's consultants. We're working with those consultants as we speak to address those comments. Once we get through the zone change application process, there'll be, if it is approved, we'll be then moving forward to a site plan application. And that is a process between the applicant and the township, and the county would be involved as well because the county road. But that's when we'll deal more specifically in terms of lighting, landscaping, the building materials. So really the details. So some of you may have questions about those things, and I may say, I just don't know yet because we're not there yet. Right now, we're just trying to establish the land use through the zoning. So prepared a few slides here. These next few slides are based on the comments that we received. And we've tried to summarize this, and they may not have captured all the comments, but I tried to synthesize it as best we could. We heard a lot of comments about the increased traffic on Gilmore Road. As I said, the traffic impact study has concluded that the proposed future traffic patterns, there will be no impact on Gilmore Road as a result of this proposed development. We are only using this access as, you may dispute that, but those are our consultants' findings. And so we are only using Gilmore Road as an employee entrance. And I understand that a lot of people are concerned that perhaps people would be traveling northward, or I'll call it north, down Gilmore towards the residential subdivision where it's a gravel road. That is not the intent. And in fact, with the fact that this is a single owner in this property, they will have the ability to be able to control where their employees come and go and direct them. Now, I'm not going to say it's not going to.
Please don't interrupt.
I'm not going to say that people aren't going to use that, but all I'm saying is that because it is a single proprietor here, as opposed to, I'll use an example of the highway commercial uses that are permitted, the retail uses, where you would have multiple owners and no ability to control where various people are coming from. This is a single owner. They have the ability to control where, how, and when their employees come to the site. So there is I'm not saying it's a foolproof measure, but it's a lot better measure than an alternative uses that could be permitted as a right today. Noise, light, and odor pollution. So as I mentioned, we've done a noise study, and this has assessed the overall impact of this development. And when they do these assessments, they look at the worst case scenario. So if everything's operating all at once, what is the noise produced? That includes not only the ventilation and mechanical systems on the building, but also the truck traffic, the parking traffic, et cetera. With all that modeling, they do the modeling and create noise decibel levels. And there are certain thresholds that the ministry provides in terms of what is an acceptable threshold provincially for that is considered acceptable. And in order for us to meet those acceptable levels from this operation, the proposal is to have this noise wall, as I noted earlier on the plan, along that sort of northern property boundary, wrapping around a portion of the parking area. With respect to lighting, again, going back to site plan, that would be a site plan matter that we will be required to do a lighting plan, a photometric plan, they call it. And we are not, through those studies, we're not allowed to cast light beyond our property boundaries. And so that will be something that will be required as part of the site plan addressed at that time. Reduced water quality was another one that was raised. So we've prepared a number of technical reports, some of which the comments were related more towards the septic system and the impacts of that septic system may have on the groundwater. As I said, this is a tertiary septic system. It is sort of the highest level of septic system. It will be required to be reviewed and approved by the ministry. So a certificate will be required from the ministry. As part of that certificate, they are required to be inspected annually and monitored annually. So that is a sort of a protocol that is just required, and it's sort of a higher level standard than probably a lot of the septic systems that you folks live on already today. I should be clear, there are a lot of questions about whether there'll be truck washing here. There will be none of that here. And as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the natural heritage feature, it will be protected. We are also downgrading of that feature. So meaning that the groundwater flows actually from the wetland towards Brock Road. And so any interference, if there were in the groundwater, it would not impact that feature. In fact, what we have, our studies have concluded is that that feature is supported by surface runoff from the north and beyond, so away from our site. Increased traffic and safety concerns. Well, the Wellington Group of Companies, their site will be a secure site. It'll be fenced and it'll be gated and it'll be secured 24/7. So we believe this will be a very secure facility at the end of the day. That shouldn't, I'll leave it at that. Storage of hazardous materials. A lot of people question what's going to be stored in here. And maybe Mark can speak to this later if it comes up in terms of what specific products they have been storing in their facilities. But I can assure you, none of the products they store are hazardous materials. That is a fact. The potential for expansion. I get that concern, and I understand where you're coming from, but I think there is opportunity here within the zoning regulations that we put forward to put some parameters on what we're proposing. And so that may be something that we have to consider as part of our application, is sort of limiting the range of uses or the scale to try to address that concern about, is this going to expand beyond what we're proposing, or is it going to change to something else? So that's something that we will certainly be working with the county planning staff to probably refine the range of uses and the scale of our operation. Hours of operation, this isn't a 24-hour operation. As I noted earlier, this is going to be operating from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's no shift work here. There's no overnight evening shifts. There may be as I mentioned earlier, there may be the odd truck that has to arrive after hours for whatever reason. There are delays on the 401 or whatnot. And again, our noise study has taken that into account and has adjusted their recommendations with respect to the noise mitigation that they're proposing, which is to accommodate those odd operating hours during the evening, but generally 7 a.m., 7 p.m. So just in closing, is our submission that this is consistent with provincial policy, and it does conform with your county plan. We think that this obviously represents certainly an intensification of this property that currently is vacant and is in a great location to the existing transportation network. I should note that much of the truck traffic will be traveling to the south or towards the 401. Very little will be going towards Guelph and are not even using Gilmore Road. Like I said earlier, this is we're intending to have this facility as a state-of-the-art facility, a showpiece for the Wellington Group of Companies. They want this to be their headquarters and a great place for themselves and their employees to enjoy. We've designed this site and we'll continue to design this site as we receive comments from the review agencies to address and mitigate the various environmental features on the property. So with that, those are my comments, and I'd be I'll happy to answer any questions right now, the committee, or whether myself or Mark are here to answer any questions, or we can come back and answer questions following the public comments.
Okay, thank you, Pierre. Okay. All the opportunity to make the comments. That we can front row that presentation. Here, if you're going to answer a question on this presentation, you're going to have to pull your chair back and please pour out.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much. And I think that the turnout today tells you that there's a
So the first thing you have to do when you go to the podium is state your address and your first and last.
Okay. I'm Alistair McCluskey, and this is Lisa Ross. And between us, we're going to lead you through a presentation that is representative of the conversations we've had across the whole of the Meadows of Aberfoyle community. And we're going to lay out a lot of the issues and a lot of the concerns that we have. And some of them we're trying to address, and we'll try to talk about some of the shortfalls in that as well.
And we are at 101 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent, part of the Meadows of Aberfoyle community, also represented here in the community.
Now you know why Lisa's there.
Absolutely, we will speak up, you bet.
Thank you. We've been told that we have 10 minutes for the entire presentation, so hopefully we can get through it all. So there's a little bit of leeway there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All in the chairs over at the end of the wall. You can hear more if you're on that end, but don't want to talk all the time to people.
How do we want to do this?
Each is an opportunity to be and that's when we can actually question to go. I prefer about their presentation because you have a neighbor. Hoping you're familiar with their with. So hopefully direct your questions to the applicant. But when we have your opportunity at a table.
Do we want to pause and ask the question now? We have flexibility.
No, we'll do it, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Each individual can have their opportunity to come up and ask the file. We chose to convert it to the so meeting.
Appreciate it.
So I know you can't error. Take your chair or any chair and move it from the front of the meeting. Much easier to turn it over here. I appreciate it to do that now. You can hear well where you are, stay where you are, but not out there.
Okay, I'm going to get through the first probably 8 or 9 slides very quickly, just to give you a framework for some of the discussions we've had and some of the areas that we have issues with. Starting off, and then Lisa will take over and go through the exact concerns we have by different areas and just categories of areas. Starting off with who we are, here's the development that we saw before and our community. And we are 250 meters from the property, from the subject property we're talking about. We're also 100 meters from the employee entrance. And the septic that is being proposed is 300 meters from our well. We represent 45, we have 45 acres, 55 homes, and they share common elements. We have advanced septic systems, 55 of them. We have annual inspections and testing. We have 2 wells, we have a pump house, we have a water treatment plant, which is monitored weekly. And we have water strategy that consists of a retention pond, constructed wetlands, and natural wetlands. And the property is managed in such a way that it ensures the ongoing quality of the property and the community and the environment. And we're contending that this application is putting all of that in jeopardy. Our position, and I think the Planning Act outlines some of the tests that people have to put applications against, as outlined here: nature of the application, desirability of the appropriate development. Is it in keeping with the zoning bylaw? Is it in keeping with the intent of the official plan? Our submission contends that this application attempts to justify the proposed use of the land, deviating significantly from the provincial policy statement and the official plan. And it doesn't take into consideration the proposed use of the land, being transportation and warehousing, and the future direction of the hamlet of Aberfoyle. What is Aberfoyle going to be in the future? And it doesn't take into consideration the impact it would have on residents to both today and in the long term. Yeah, I'm not going to read all of the words and all the slides, so you are probably happy about it. Our opposition to rezoning, we're representing 100% of the members within Meadows of Aberfoyle. Although there are some people on holidays, so we didn't get every single resident. But we have 100% respondents opposing the rezoning. There may be one or two people who wanted more additional information, but in general, 100% are opposed to rezoning. We did a walk up and down Gilmore and talked to as many as we could. Again, some holidays and some homes were not occupied at the time. Overwhelmingly supported turning down this application. In broad terms, and Lisa will go into some of the details. In broad terms, the concerns were around the actual request for the zoning change itself, the proposed industrial use, namely transportation and warehousing, the deviations from the official plan, and we have 3 documents which have been attached for members of council that are outlining the deviations of the to the official plan. The lack of commitment from the applicant to limit time of day operations, and I know we heard there's a variation on that today. The growth and lack of consideration to the impact of surrounding communities. The current studies that are being done and are in process open the door to a lot of questions. And we have questions that we'll go through as well. And the potential precedent for continued rezoning of adjacent lands. Where does this stop? The ongoing requirement for operational oversight is going to be on an ongoing basis. Environmental impacts, the use of Gilmore Road, and day-to-day disruptions. So, and the inherent traffic and health safety risk impacts that will be created with the approval. That's the last point on the slide. It is not the least important. Today's reality, the County of Wellington official plan does a great job of delineating boundaries designated for residential industrial growth. As an effort to maintain the character and the principles of strong communities, a strong and healthy environment, and economic growth for the long term. And over the last few years, COVID has actually changed the dynamics of small town across Ontario. And there's been an influx of people from the large cities into small communities like ours. Recent REMAX studies showed that about 32 to 35% of people want to move out of the city and move into smaller communities and into rural communities. And we don't want to be one of them that if that happens and as the growth happens, which is not a problem, we don't want to struggle to maintain the identity that we have today. So we need to take every opportunity to protect and enhance the attributes that make our community attractive in the first place. The policy and plan deviations, and again, we have documents that back it up. They're extensive, and we're not going to go through all the details at this time. We don't have the time. But provincial policy statement sets the foundation for regulating the development and use of land. It provides the development while protecting resources, public health and safety, and the quality of the natural environment. And strong communities, a clean and healthy environment, and a strong economy are inextricably linked. The Wellington official plan
calls for the maintenance of a clear distinction between urban and rural areas. The application requests a zone change and the elimination of the added protection under 14.0 site-specific special provisions of the Cliffs Lynch zoning bylaw. And the industrial zoning would not be really, industrial zoning shouldn't be near or beside and adjacent from the residential zone. So it's our opinion that section 14 confirms the township was trying to protect against the industrial encroachment into residential areas. If you look at the Cliffs Lynch positioning, I'm not going to read it to you, but basically it's trying to balance business and residential. Right, it's trying to balance and figure out how to attract business and attract investment and maintain and offer residents an opportunity to have a safe and an enjoyable experience while they're here. So we understand that balance. We understand that attracting a substantial tax base, maximizing the use of existing land infrastructure, maintaining a viable community both now and in the future. We understand that balance, but it should also be done to enhance and not adversely impact community residents. So it's building the brand that Aberfoyle and Cliffs Lynch are trying to accomplish. The application itself, not going to read it, but the Highway Commercial Act as identified highway commercial zone intended to provide commercial uses, serving traveling public and not considered compatible with the central business district of Aberfoyle. And down the bottom, it says the zoning of bylaw amendments is required in order to rezone the property to industrial to facilitate the proposed development. In our mind, the way we're reading this is that the rezoning is being requested to facilitate the development, not whether it's the right use of the land. And the applicant's submission justifies the rezoning because it's required to use the land in the manner not within the official plan. So it's self-fulfilling. Can't put it on there now, have to rezone it, and then it's part of the official plan. It's acceptable now. So it's a little bit circular. The application disregards the notion the land should be compatible with the central business district of Aberfoyle. So the separation between residential downtown business is disappearing. From a community perspective, this is the last one for me. It removes and deprives the community of a potential small-scale commercial institution and public service facility location. There are two of them, I believe, and I could be wrong. There are two of them in Aberfoyle. This is one of them. The other one is down, is north of us. And it removes the buffer between industrial and resident and the downtown commercial, urban, rural, and agricultural lands. That piece of property is the buffer between the industrial to the south. From the residents' perspective, again, 250 meters from the neighborhood, entrance for employees 100 meters, nearest to that, and the septic is 300 meters from our well. So the concerns divided by category: environmental, health and safety, traffic and road conditions, property values, and future impacts.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Not finished yet, but thank you. So first concern from an environmental perspective, there's a few that we'd like to talk about: water usage and quality, septic size and the orientation, as well as the stormwater management overall. It's great to hear that there's a tertiary septic. That's what we all have in Aberfoyle. Every single one of us. We believe in the protection of our water. We commit to it. We work with our community, and we would expect the same from you. One thing next is a question, and we can certainly talk about this further when we get this opportunity, but it does not make sense why you're not being requested to pursue a permit to take water. We as a community have a permit to take water. Maple Leaf, which is a warehouse, a smaller facility with less imprint on the community and on the environment, has to have a permit to take water. Why does this proposal not include a permit to take water? Is it because it shifts it from a dry to an industrial, dry to a wet industrial? We would hope that that wouldn't be the case, because we need to do the right thing for our community. This water is a direct access, and this is great to hear that you're looking at protecting this, because we expect and we do the same. We actually build into our, as Alistair was saying, a retention pond or constructed wetlands, natural wetlands, vegetated swell. You go past those lovely little lovely horses. That's where there's an overflow if need be. We do not want it into the Aberfoyle Creek. The Aberfoyle Creek goes onto the Mill Creek. Mill Creek goes into the Grand River. This is all part of our aquifer. You have one well. It does not make sense, even if you decide to not use this well and to access the water, that will be sufficient. That 50,000 liters a day will be sufficient for the size that we're looking at for your particular facility. You're going to have a gym, and that's a lovely thing for your employees, but that takes water. I'm hoping they would take showers after it. But there's even potable water. I mean, how do you do that with the capacity? We're not able to do it as a community. Maple Leaf is not able to do it as a community, as an industrial property. I do not understand. So we'd like some further details around that. From a septic size, if you're not pursuing that permit to take water, which is a distinction of water size, and talks about the estimated water and the septic capacity that you will need, it appears to us that this is understated on your septic. So we'd like more information on this. From a stormwater perspective, as I've talked about, we protect our stormwater significantly. We are very careful as to salting our roads. What do we do with all the runoff? We do not use chemicals. We have septic. We actually care about the kind of toilet paper we use in our septic even. We have to. And so what are your plans to do that? This is all of our water. The impact is significant that one of us makes a mistake. One of us impacts our water. We all are impacted, not just in the meadows of Aberfoyle, all of us that live in this area, right into the water. Well, on to the next slide. We've talked about, and it's great to hear that you're looking at noise and light pollution. The noise study does concern us. Where you're proposing that two meter wall, it's a high altitude. We'd like to understand what is the strategy around that, because that does protect at certain levels, but our community is built on different levels. We have communities along the back that have wonderful balconies that they sit out and enjoy a nice cocktail and face our community. That will actually not have any impact on these communities that are at a higher altitude. So these are things that we all need to understand, because would significantly impact us as a community. The light pollution, we actually lived in Toronto. We moved to Guelph. We were downtown Guelph. We're part of downtown committee advisory. We actually involved in the heritage. We're involved in the community. We wanted a smaller community, and we chose to move here because of a lot of reasons. And part of this is this community and the protection that it does of the water, of the community, and of the identity of what this is. From the next slide, from an air pollution perspective, I think we can all talk about for a long time our concerns around diesel and the pollution concerns that it causes. And so we've certainly expressed in writing our concerns. I will not pretend to be an expert, but I, as an individual and with children that are in our community, care about the air pollution that this will also, each truck brings further diesel and pollutants and particulates into our community. From a health and safety risk, this is good. We are very pleased to hear that you are not today planning to have any dangerous or toxic or materials on the property. I don't know what that next day looks like. As you look at expansion, if you decide to have other partners, what are our protections that this is not going to change? This, as we talk about your plans, this is something that it is obviously still evolving, and we need to understand that, because this has a direct impact. From a safety perspective, I truly struggle to understand how on this traffic study that it looks at this, we've seen it's a 1 second impact. This doesn't make sense. And I would try to not have a visceral response when you said there would be no impact on Gilmore Road. We heard this from the community as you said that. I don't understand how it won't have an impact on Gilmore Road. It's an unpaved road. It is a road that has a very small runway to the roundabout if people are using the roundabout. And I've heard now multiple numbers of how many people. There's 123 parking spots, but now you're only doing a traffic study based on 15 cars, but we heard 49, 59. There's questions. So we need details, because this doesn't make sense. There will be a significant impact. If everyone comes to work, everyone leaves work, they will have to leave Gilmore. And Gilmore, Go to the east, it's an unpaved road that we love walking down as a community because it's a beautiful road and there's a beautiful homes that we all live and we've chosen to live here. And this is, we moved here because this is a plan that we knew there were commercial development around us. We're not the NIMBY group. We're there, we are, Alistair and I actually have MBAs. We have done big business for a long, long time. But it's the right development at the right time that builds the foundational pieces. And this is what we're looking for. So I will, we talk about that second, it just does not make sense how coming off the 401 with the traffic, I would venture every single one of us have had a challenge getting through the roundabout of during traffic, whether than the school buses are out in the morning and at night, the traffic is going to be an issue. At 1 second, I'd like to understand the 1 second assessment because this does not make sense of even if there were 15 employees coming in and leaving, which again, just doesn't fit with the amount that you're building. And the roundabout, it is, as one of my neighbors likes to call it, a restaurant roulette. You have, that would be the gentleman over there. And so we have, we love roundabouts. Alistair was raised in England. He's one of the experts, but it is a very difficult thing to do with trucks and cars and in a community that is still learning a roundabout. You put on the blinker and you still almost take your life in your hands and you're going to increase traffic. Trucks that are leaving, whether it be on Brock, going north, going through that roundabout, the same time at the aggregate, same time as Blue Triton, same time as people that live in the community and people that want to live in the community. Next slide. So as we talk about the Gilmore Road, this really is something that just is very close, obviously, literally and figuratively to our home. This will have a significant impact. I will just say, I do not understand how the traffic study will say there is absolutely no impact on Gilmore. There will be impacts. There will be cars. Every car will be an impact. We live here. We are concerned about this community. We love this community. We've chosen to be here based on the model, based on what we have all believed is the development of what this community is going to be. Our property values will be impacted. We have all, when you consider let's not even talk about that if there is a water concern. If we have a water concern, all of our property values in our community is impacted. So again, we will ask from a water protection perspective, this is a significant concern of why you're not doing a permit to take water where it can be monitored and controlled, like all of us have committed to in living in this community. This is the last opportunity, one of two commercial opportunities to create the vision of what was the hamlet of Aberfoyle. We have a lovely antique market. We have a lovely farmer's market. We have engaged Puslinch strategies that I love that you guys all do. This is critical. This is why we're here. This is moving industrial in, and it is then taking the buffer of how do we define our community. You come into industrial, there will be no further buffer to where our community begins. It will be that beginning, it sets a precedent. It's not something that can be undone very easily. So this is really, when we've heard concerns around, well, why would we want commercial, or this is less impact than a strip mall, or why would we want these things? Because these are facilities that and that also continue to support our community. Wouldn't it be great to have little restaurants or little great shops like a Market Fresh in our community? Those are things that will all go away if we remove that commercial opportunity. And when it's gone, it's gone. The plans look lovely. They're beautiful buildings. Not trying to say that they're not, but it is going to be something that will have an impact as you look at coming down. And these are homes that are not low value homes. And this is a community that has been a significant tax base. From when you look at, real estate odds, the details, it's lovely to be and proud to be in an area that continues to develop and attract future development of beautiful homes and a beautiful community around us. This will remove the buffer. The residential properties will be impacted, not just for us in the Meadows of Aberfoyle, all the way down Gilmore. The residential areas on Brock, and potentially, again, if there's any water concerns or bugs, then we will all be impacted. So as I said, I would really like to just challenge all of us to think about who are we as a community. We have this concept of the hamlet of Aberfoyle. We have looked at traffic calming strategies. We have looked at engagement of how do we improve our farmers market. It is always going to be a blend of we come from there's an agricultural area, and then there is this new concept of how do we evolve as a community. What does that look like when we become an industrial base? There will be less and less opportunities. There will be more for lease signs, as we're already starting to see, if we don't take a time to pause and to think about exactly what we want to be as a community. Because once this decision is made, if this decision is made, it's final. It changes the whole look and the feel and the blueprint of what Aberfoyle could be. So definitively, we won't go into the concerns again. We'd love to talk about them, and certainly appreciate having the media here as well. This is we talk about the community, and this is important, and this is the first opportunity for us to be involved, and we thank you. It is discouraging. We'll put that aside, that this is our first opportunity. We found out from your lovely article about what was happening, and that the next day, listening to council and listening to this proposal, the one thing I will say is that spurred us all on and strengthened our community strength, and the commitments that we feel towards this commitment of making sure that this is done with eyes open, as well as are looking at who do we want to be as a community, all of us, not just this one opportunity. That is a great opportunity for you guys, but we need to figure out how it makes sense as a community. So appreciate the time. Look forward to more questions. And I know there'll be quite a few people in this audience that I think would also want to cover questions. So thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and Councillor, and thank you.
Here, do you want to address any of the questions in the presentation? We're here to listen. I don't know if there's specific questions. Back to that. The golf cart is going through. I'm thinking of the work front of the show. We'll just keep working from lower left to right. And in how goes to the right. We'll do it one at a time. We're not interested in significant volumes. So just a friendly reminder, first last name and everything.
My name is Greg Cook. I live at 19 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent. What else do I have to say? That's it? Okay. Obviously, I'm a member of the Meadows of Aberfoyle. I think the things that struck me with the presentation, and we were involved with putting it together, the key elements to me are, I really believe traffic is going to be seriously affected. Most of those trucks are going to try to come out onto Brock Road. They're not going to turn right. They're not going to turn left. They're going to turn right because they won't be able to get across the road because there's so much traffic going. There's 2 lanes on each side. They're going to turn right. They're going to go up around the roundabout, and that's going to cause serious backups. The other thing with the traffic is if you have 150 employees, and maybe they're not all leaving at the same time, but there's probably going to be 100 employees leaving and coming at night. Okay, and it's about, I believe the exit from the proposed site is about 50 or 60 feet from the roundabout. Those cars are going to be lined up, and it's going to take forever to ground. And in the morning when they come in, if a lot of them are coming from the south, they're going to be lined up and blocking the whole roundabout because they're all just going to be lined up around the corner. It's going to be a serious traffic problem. Okay, very serious. And again, I think one of the key elements again is that getting into the proposal here is to change what has been in place in the master plan as a commercial and residential and rural area, and it's going to be changed. The way you can put this in is to change the zoning. Okay, and as Lisa said, that buffer is in there right now, separating the industrial area now from the residential and the downtown area, and that'll be gone. Okay, so I'm also very concerned about the the septic system I'm concerned about, but also the whole water table, okay? It's all, it covers probably about 5 or 6 kilometers in all directions. And that water table is going to be, we're worried about the runoff from a roof of a 200,000 square foot building. And I think the parking lot, the paved area is going to be some 150,000 square feet, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to have a bunch of trucks in there. There's going to be grease and oil and everything else under the sun, and it's going to run off of that because it's covering all the land up, and it's going to go into the ditches and it's going to go into the aquifer. That's where it's going to go. Okay, and it's not, we're not going to be protected from that. We don't have any of that kind of stuff going on right now in the area. So that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, past president. I'm Cam McConnell. I'm at 97 Aberfoyle. I'm the current president. I'm also very involved day to day, as is Greg, in the managing of our water plant and all of our environmental aspects. So some of the areas I may have more experience with than even some of your consultants. I'm not going to cover all the stuff, but I made notes of maybe some things that were incomplete or missing. When the noise study was conducted, there was a solution put forth of a 2-meter fence. Well, from my experience in designing acoustic barriers for highways, I can tell you 2-meter fence won't do it when you've got an elevation difference in our back lots and then an elevated deck above that. You'd have to build a 30-meter fence to make that problem go away with that first row of houses. And those are the people that are going to get really hammered the worst. So that's this noise study. It just doesn't add up to anything, but it didn't take into account the actual situation that we live with. Now, how we manage our water. Boy, we manage the demand side with the permit weekly, but almost as importantly, we have constructed wetlands. We have retention ponds. We take advantage of a natural wetland. And by the time any of our stormwater makes it into the watershed, it's already pre-treated. Plus, we don't have the contaminant going in. So fewer contaminants and complete pre-treatment before it enters the watershed. I don't see any of that in this plan. It's going straight into the storm sewer and then straight into the local creeks. That's a big problem. Because the aquifer under us is the same one under Blue Triton, which hasn't come up today at all, which is very concerning as well. We were not really part of this consultation. And we really think we should have been, as close as we are and as important as we are to the community. Noise, water, we don't know what's in the warehouse. It's non-hazardous. Okay. The cushions in your chairs are non-hazardous. They're made out of polyurethane. And when subject to fire, they're hydrogen cyanide, the same chemical used in the death camps. But there's nothing hazardous about them until they're on fire. They're the worst possible thing you could be. And as a firefighter, you understand about polyurethane. That's just one thing. There's nothing in there. We don't know anything. It's so incomplete. The traffic circle, yes, I'm the one that makes jokes about it. It is Russian roulette. I say it's not in your survey. It just says it's 1 second delayed. I think maybe sometimes these studies just don't reflect the fact that they don't live here. And they just don't see it. And it's obvious because the noise study is completely irrelevant. How could it be? How could they miss the fact that we have elevated lots and elevated housing? Nobody mentions it. I just really don't, it makes it seem inadequate and it makes me nervous about the rest of it. Thank you.
You like to speak? No? I said go that way, but if you're ready to go. It works.
Spreadwoods, 94 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent. Thank you. I'd like to ask a few questions other than what's been brought up so far. Has Wellington actually purchased the property?
Do you want to answer that? It's under offer.
Under offer. Okay. Is the township providing any tax relief or tax incentives to Wellington for relocating?
I'm aware of it.
Okay. I saw in the diagram, there's a extra lane being put in for the truck traffic. Who's paying for that?
Will the cost of development.
Okay, so the township or the county's not putting in any money for any improvements for the benefit of the new company.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Second row there.
Oh, no,
Thank you.
yeah, I'll be like 2 seconds.
You have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Everybody gets 10 minutes.
Carolyn, just got to 97 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent. Yes, I am the wife of the president, so that makes me the first lady. Haha. Okay, so the only thing I just have like a couple of questions and really just kind of piggybacking on what Lisa said, I would love to get a little more involved with what the brand is for Push Lynch. And is there one, and what is the write-up, and what is the marketing plan for this area? Because I really think as a team, we could figure out really productive things to do with that property. And I'm not suggesting what you've got isn't productive at all. But I just really want to have a better understanding and get more involved. I also just wanted to state that very disappointed in Push Lynch that such poor notice, and we had no idea what was going on. And I just, we moved here for a reason because we thought it was community, and I'm not getting that feel right now. And I could be totally wrong, sir, and I apologize if I am. And if there was a way I could have gotten more involved in this, shame on me. No, beforehand. So, First Lady. So at the end of the day, I think that's about all I want to say is I'm disappointed and not comfortable with where we're all sitting. And I think we should have some more dialogue and some more conversation because I'm not anti putting something on that corner. What is the right thing? What is the right fit? And what are the future plans? And is that articulated and where do I find it? And how do I get involved?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because I've heard a few times about concerns around notification,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Ms. Whitefox to explain the process that we went through for notifying the community. One part that is fact, like it or lump it, we were only required to notify properties within 120 meters. And I believe at the recommendation of staff endorsed by this council,
we notified your community, which was outside of that statutory requirement. So we did not have to. So, well, no, that was our understanding. So we recognize there's impact. So we notified you. So, and this way, no, get your 10 minutes up there. Otherwise, this meeting will take until tomorrow. So Ms. Whitefox, if you can speak to the notification and time, please.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not going to repeat what the mayor said about the notice and the notice requirements, but in addition, all statutory notices under the Planning Act are required to be in the newspaper. So this was also in the Wellington Advertiser as required. And then the township also kind of takes that one step further, and we have a web page that's dedicated to any active zoning applications on our website. So it is available there with all relevant studies as well for the public to have full and complete transparent access to. In addition to kind of the statutory notice that we put out, we also put out a guide to help the community get involved, which includes something like a QR code to contact staff or go directly to the webpage. So just a couple different ways that we try to make the community involved. Yeah.
No, please don't. Please don't. When you're at the podium, you have the opportunity to speak. You can't have speaking from the food gallery. Thank you, Ms. Whitefox. All right, next individual. Thank you. Thank you.
Something sticky on that. I'm Ken McKenzie. I live at number 81 Everfoyle Mill Crescent. My wife and I are longtime residents of Guelph, living initially in the city and then out in a rural property. And then when we downsized, Meadows of Everfoyle, seeing it as an ideal place to spend the rest of our lives. So when people talk about property value, we don't see a number that we can sell the property for. We're not in it for that game. We see property value as the quality of the area that we live in, and we're very happy with where we're at right now. And needless to say, we get our guard up when something threatens to change that. I will be brief here. I'm not going to take 10 minutes. Traffic concerns are the big thing with my wife and I. Greg mentioned an interesting point in that trucks are going to be entering and exiting from Rock Road. But for a truck to get to the highway, essentially heading south, they're going to have to turn out and go north. So essentially, all outbound traffic is going to go through the roundabout. One of the interesting things that I noticed about a roundabout, if you've ever been behind a truck and they negotiate a roundabout, they slow down, they put their flashers on, because one of the features of a long truck going through the roundabout is that they obstruct both lanes. There's already been an accident in the roundabout involving a large truck that essentially cornered a car that was going on the inside lane. And I saw that on my way to work, and I thought, well, you know what, trucks in a roundabout have to play nicely with traffic and vice versa. More trucks is going to be more situations like that. So traffic concerns are number one with us. I'd like to ask the applicant why the employee entrance is off Gilmore. Why not off Brock Road?
Mr. Chair, just to make sure question. One of the because we're fronting on county road, they would actually like not have any entrances on the county road. They want to move traffic. However, they realize with this operation there is a truck entrance, and so they're only allowing a truck entrance. And by extension, that means our employee access has to be on.
I've been involved with the neighborhood group in terms of their presentation, so I won't belabor the points that they have made anymore. We have concerns about water quality, and we will try and be be present at every step of any future applications to protect that, because ultimately that's bread and butter to us. Thank you.
I'm Nancy Lennox at 78 Agricola Mill Crescent. I appreciate the notice. That seems to be an issue is that my understanding from speaking to people in the community, just only a few of us got the notice in the middle of that work. Can I see hands about who didn't get the notice? Many of them didn't, and which resulted in us having to actually reach out to our neighbors to say if you didn't get the information or not. So appreciate that, council took it, but it ended up that not a lot of people actually in our community got it. And we actually had to do a lot of door knocking to go around to make awareness in terms of these concerns. I reiterate a lot of the concerns that my neighbors have raised. One question I really have is around the hours of operation. It seems to be a moving target. Before the planning council meeting, it was until 5 o'clock. It's now extended to 7 o'clock. There was some comments made about depending on the nature of the business and the cost model, whether it would have to go further beyond that. We know that Maple Leaf is a 24-hour industry that they run, and also the nature of the trucking business is not 9 to 5 or 7 to 5. Dispatch is likely 24/7. So much concern in terms of once this gets approved, the impacts it will have further around the hours of operation being much extended than it was originally anticipated. And also too, once it gets approved as industrial, what's the future in terms of things changing at that point? Can there be hazardous materials? Can it be longer hours? Can it be more of an expansion, leasing out to other different owners at that point? So there's really not much controls after this gets approved. And so it's concern in terms of what will be in the future. It's very much a market-driven business, and what the market will see in the demands, there'll be a consumer response to that, and what will that look like in the future. So that's, thank you.
My name is Ed Coe, and I live at 78 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent. Haven't heard anybody say in the audience as yet, but I am fully opposed to the rezoning of the property in question. That's no reflection on Wellington Freight. I understand that they are one of the top growth companies, and we certainly welcome them to remain in Whistler. But have you explored any other properties within Whistler? It's a township that's land rich, lots of sale signs along the 401 that would allow for present, proposed, and future growth plans. May be more conducive to your needs and not at the expense of the residents of Meadows of Aberfoyle. That's my.
You guys want to answer that, or?
We explore some other properties.
I should just that and the space then. Oh, sorry, you want on my okay, I changed plans. Go to the point of this. Just because we're recording this.
My name is Mark Lunsoff. I actually live in Moffat, 218410 Side Road. I'm a rural resident, so I'm on a septic system. I'm on a well. I'm aware of your concerns. We are in Westlands. We love this community. There's a bunch of us that do live in it. Everybody of our employees are from Guelph. They're from the area. I want to say I appreciate you guys coming out today. I would love to say that you guys are fully supportive of it, but everything you're saying is valid concerns. And through this process, if it turns out that it's not the right facility, we're not going to ram this down your throat. To be honest, like we want to be welcomed here. We designed this building with the thought that you guys could drive by it proudly. We are on McLean Road, and if it doesn't work out, maybe I politically shouldn't say this or not, but if it doesn't work out, we're not going to be offended. All right. So in the end, I'll take responsibility as the lead of this company that we should have given you better notice. This is the first time we did it, first time we purchased land, first time we've gone down this road. Now, for sure, we should have come to you guys and said, here's what we're thinking. We could have heard your voice earlier, but I don't think we're too late in the process to hear your voice. So thanks for coming and understand that in it, there's the right processes in here that the water for sure, if we're not protecting the water, we'll shut down 100%. If we're not doing the right things, we're here to work with you. If that wall's not high enough for sound, we'll do it. I think the idea that they thought is that you drive in there and you won't hear the trucks. I like to speak to the trucks. We only use current equipment. How we do is we lease our trucks. They're 5 years or newer. All trucks currently today have DEF fluid, so we don't have stinky, smelly trucks. We really don't. We don't own any trucks. We won't be repairing trucks. They're on full maintenance leases that go back to the dealership that we purchased them from. They have to go mandatory there every 30,000 kilometers. If there's any leaks, spills, anything you name it, it's done. And then at 5 years, we replenish the trucks. So Brock Road, I can tell you what we're talking about. That is, this property could be something else for you guys. Like maybe that's what you want. You want McDonald's, you want things to service your community better. To the point of Gilmore Road, if that comes, anybody go down that road. And I can assure you, as one of the partners here, I'm not the exclusive owner, but I'm representing a volunteer group of companies, that we will restrict traffic down there. That is an easy no-brainer. I have a bunch of employees here, a bunch of VPs and presidents are here to support us. That's really easy. That's a gravel road. Personally, I don't like driving down gravel roads. It makes my truck dirty, and call me particular on that, but that's no brainer. I do come down your road once in a while. I come down slow. I see you guys walking on it, and we can do a restriction on it. We have one occasional employee that doesn't do it, but that's really easy to say, hey, you turn left, you go to the roundabout. As far as the truck traffic goes, our drivers are professional. Northbound traffic, they will never go northbound. Like, we can restrict that. There's no reason for them to go northbound. I don't try to graze it. If they're left, there's a light on McLean Road. It's a red light. That stops traffic. Our drivers are professional. They'll come out, they'll take a left. We'll restrict them with signs, say no right turns. We're here to work with you guys and your other concerns you have. And eventually, again, I don't want to be even as the enemy here. The Wellington Group does. We take pride to be here. We're part of your Christmas parade. We plan to be here for a long term. So if it means that we got to stay in McLean Road, or perhaps we look at another piece of land. Perhaps we will. We're open to it, but right now, the dream would become that we hear your concerns, and we can satisfy them, and we can have you can be happy in your community, and we can be happy being part of Muslims. So I don't. We looked at other properties. Yes, there's different values and whatnot. This seemed to make sense for what we were interested in. We actually thought this would be a perfect location for everybody, from you guys. But again, let's just walk through the process, and we're prepared. We just had a conversation. If you guys after this, if we want to have a town meeting, we come to get together, and if you guys want to submit it, like this doesn't have to happen overnight. We can talk through it. In the end, hopefully we're all on the same page.
Gentlemen, yeah, I think you're the next row, correct? Yeah. I'm Michael Hoffbauer. I live at 38 Gilmore Road. We've lived here since about 1995. When we moved here because we wanted a rural type environment. We used to live downtown Guelph, and it was a very lovely neighborhood. And one of the things that I really did not like is that about a half a kilometer from our home, sometimes they would idle the GO locomotives, and you'd come out in the morning, and it really was extremely unpleasant to have that something that you'd have to put up with. And those locomotives were being idled probably, I'm guessing, at least half a kilometer away. With regard to noise pollution, I am still concerned, in spite of the fact that you're going to put up some fences, etc. Part of the noise, and probably the major part of the noise, is generated by the exhaust system of trucks. And in a yard like that, you're going to be accelerating and decelerating short distances. And the exhaust part of the truck is definitely more than 2 meters. The other thing is, so when we sit on our front porch and we can hear noise coming from the gravel pit, that is, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's definitely probably 1.5 kilometers away. And it's, yeah, people, when we have visitors, they say, well, what's that noise, right? Well, it's the gravel pit over there. The other thing is the light. When we moved here, we didn't have, when the Schneider facility opened, we didn't have the GO facility that was open there. I used to go outside with the kids and, on the picnic table, we'd set up a telescope and look at the stars and all this kind of stuff. That is much more difficult to do now. Furthermore, now we have grandchildren, and I think that will be that looking at stars through the telescope is going to be a thing of the past. Certainly, the light coming from the Schneider and that industrial area down there has had a noticeable impact on how we are able to use our properties. I'm not going to get into water quality. I think that those issues were very well addressed. With regard to odor is really truly nothing. The literature on diesel exhaust emissions is huge, absolutely huge. Now, I respect the fact that you've got your diesel exhaust fluid and newer equipped trucks. But that is an improvement, but it still doesn't eliminate, let's say, the hazards associated with it. In one of the papers here that I looked at, now this is published a while ago, diesel exhaust contains more than 40 air toxic contaminants. The diesel exhaust fluid does not get rid of it all. 70% of all environmental pollution deaths are attributed to diesel exhaust emissions. The EPA has done a study. They said that children growing up within a corridor of 2 miles on either side of an interstate are going to have a much higher chance of getting asthma. That is and that is when you have trucks going down an interstate. When you have a yard, you're starting up and stopping, starting up and stopping. The exhausts that come off that is very, very different and much bigger than, let's say, what's happening on the 401. Something that hasn't been raised is that we've got Aberfoyle Public School. What distance is that from the proposed location? The staff and students are there, what, 8 hours a day or 6 or 7, whatever the case is. Are we looking after protecting them? All the residents of Aberfoyle. I personally have spent my entire career studying air quality, both in the environment and in the workplace. And there is so much literature on diesel exhaust emissions and the problems associated with it. It is just too much. I'd like to just give these are 3 that I just photocopied for the council. I'm just going to read here. This is from the Government of Canada. Human health risk assessment for diesel exhaust, a summary study. And I can find the date here. I'm not sure exactly when it was dated. Anyways, health effects associated with diesel exhaust exposure, as well as a quantitative analysis of the population health impacts associated with the contribution of diesel exhaust to criteria air contaminant concentrations in Canada. There's a lot of things that I've highlighted, and don't want to go over everything. The evidence reviewed This is a summary study by Health Canada. The evidence reviewed is suggestive of a causal relationship between diesel exhaust and adverse cardiovascular outcomes following chronic exposure, adverse reproductive and developmental effects, and central nervous system effects following acute exposure. All right, so this is now for environmental exposure. That, and I would imagine that would take into account not properties like we have in Aberfoyle Meadows and Aberfoyle Creek, but just in general. Okay, very broad. The exposure of the residents in the, let's say, within a kilometer, that would definitely be impacted. At least a kilometer, probably two, according to the EPA study about children getting asthma from that. Here's another, let's say, paper from the CCOHS. So that's the Canadian Center for Occupational Health and Safety. So this would maybe be geared more to your workers down there. They list all the contaminants that are in diesel exhaust, and there are many of them. Diesel particulate matter is primarily made up of soot particles, carbon ash, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, metallic abrasion particles, sulfates, and silicates. Almost all particulate emitted by diesel engines is respirable. And that means that it doesn't get stuck in the upper respiratory tract. It means it goes right down to the area that you just don't want these things in. Again, the major health concerns, there are many. It is a serious issue. I'm not going to get into the details of this one, but there are the amount of information that's available in scientifically peer-reviewed literature is very, very much. And even if trucks are equipped with diesel exhaust fluid, that does not eliminate it. It reduces it, but doesn't eliminate it. The amount of and the traffic that is presently on Brock Road definitely has an impact on the ability of cars to exit from Gilmore onto Brock. There's a lot of traffic going up north. I'm happy for the roundabout because without it, it was much worse. That's when you really took your life into your hands. But when you go, so there's going to be a lot of vehicles coming out, and then you hope that at McLean Road, they get a red lights to give us a break to get in between. So what happens is if you have a truck going through there, they will always go slower. And I understand they need two lanes, and I always make sure I stay behind them so I don't get caught in there. But that will slow down that traffic moving up. So any truck that needs to go either through the traffic circle or to the bottling plant, they're going to slow things down. All the cars going through will slow things down, and it will actually have an impact on traffic there that the traffic circle was trying to mitigate. I noticed on your brochure here, you're installing a turning lane coming from the south. That's great. You do logistics and you do transportation. If you have a customer who is let's say, where you're transporting material for them, and they happen to come from the north. Well, then when you're going southbound after the traffic circle, making the turn into the lot is going to be a lot more different as well. All in all, I see that even considering this zoning change is something that from an air pollution point of view, I wouldn't even touch. And I agree with previous comments too, that eliminating the buffer between residential and Maple Leaf and the industrial area down there is something that I never would expect. I never would have expected it. And I think that if council did allow for that, I don't think that the best interests of the residents of Portsmouth or Aberfoyle were kept forefront. Thank you very much.
So one thing I want to mention, you have lots of time left. If you have concerns around the traffic, the water, any of these common concerns, I appreciate if you just mention that you agree with those concerns. We don't need to get into every detail of every traffic scenario, please. We have a lot of people to ask if they want to attend the podium yet. So I appreciate your consideration in that. And any specific questions you may still present to the or ask the applicants. So next, I believe, is Mary or Dawn.
Hi, members of council, Jake Myers, I live at 70 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent. And first of all, I want to say how much we appreciate learning a little bit more about the development here tonight. Lots of questions and lots of concerns. And let me say that I agree with a lot of all the concerns that have been expressed. I have two questions. One is a procedural question, and it's about the studies that have been undertaken and that are underway. I think a lot of the questions that we have come because we have not actually seen the results of a lot of those studies. So will those studies be made available and available for, and will they be peer, first of all, will they be peer reviewed? Will they be available for comment going forward? So
through you, Mr. Chair. So there are the initial submission documents available on our website, very accessible to the public. And then as we move forward through peer review, you'll see those subsequent submissions with the peer reviews available in council reports, as well as on our active planning application page on the website.
Okay, thank you. And when will the studies be complete? And how many of the studies are still underway? I guess is the question.
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Chair, again, it looks a little bit different for each application, but essentially there's a submission and then there's a review period and then there's an opportunity for a resubmission. So it really just depends on the pace of those studies and getting the work completed. And then we are under timeframe 7 of the Planning Act as well, but generally it's cooperation in that work between the proponent and the township to get those out as quickly as we can.
So I guess we all have an obligation to take a look and make sure that we know what the content of those studies are, and that we have an opportunity to come back to council and provide council our views of those studies when they are posted. The second question is a business question, which is Wellington's a rapidly growing company here, and this is a question more about the future, I guess, which we really haven't discussed in terms of where the business is going. My question would be, what capacity would the facility be working at when it is underway, or when it's first built there, and what sort of growth plan do you have in future for the use of the facility?
I prefer you to get close to a microphone so that it's captured. Unless you want to come back.
Those are just my
sure. You're fine. Your question is a swap position would be great.
I joined Wellington as a partner about 4 years ago. We had an aspiration. We just talked in the office one time where we would go. Where my partner Derek and I, we just said
you know, we hit the $3 million mark, we said, how about 100 million? That's a good number. It sounds like a good number. Let's aspire for that. And when we hit there, let's be happy. How much money, how big you have to grow. That's literally, and then he came back to me about 3 weeks later. He said, I don't like that number. I'm a very OCD guy. I think it has to be 120. It's $10 million a month. I said, all right. I said, that sounds fair. So we just went and we surrounded ourselves with extremely professional people, great people, and we started creating a culture of a fun place to work and a place to, and so we started enjoying this concept. Then we started realizing we kind of had an obligation to these people that were coming to work for us to create a better place. And part of, you know, if you're a business, you're not growing, you're dying. So it just became kind of this entity that by all these wonderful people that we have attracted, we started growing, and we have had the accolades of being one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. And it's because of our great leadership of Derek, our CEO, and so in this, we're just trying to be we're not trying to be the richest people in the world. We've actually just become an entity that's become a life of its own. And we're just trying right now, because, sorry, I need water. And, you know, it's Nestle when you need them. So we're just trying to find a home. If it's not in Bushers, we have, we right now currently have people working at 3 or 4 different facilities. If we amalgamate them right now, we'd probably be up to about 75, 80 people that work out of that facility. And not necessarily we're evolving our business. We have a place in Cambridge. We were thinking about taking that Cambridge warehouse here. If I quickly speak about what we currently have as far as products, we store flour.
Can I interject? Sorry, I apologize. Can you just
Answer the question?
Yes, please. Can you just, what, as proposed, are you going to be at 25% of the potential of that facility when you first open the doors? And your thoughts on how long, if at all, you would get to 100% of actually potential?
Okay, so we were told about a square footage, we were dictated how many parking spaces we had to have. That was the requirement by bylaw. So that's what's set. Will we ever have 170 people? Don't know. And we don't really, we're kind of figuring out where we're going to go inside some company, but we don't plan to expand it there. That we hope to have enough for all our warehouse staff there and our office staff and to be a source of it. Answer that question like that. So initially we're not filling it. How would you like me to answer?
Will it be 50% capacity when it opens the door, or will it be 80% or?
We hope to have the warehouse completely full because we're investing a lot of money. If that warehouse is not full, then
Like drivers, trucks.
drivers, well, yeah, fair enough. We are largely a brokerage company. If you understand that, we use other trucks. So a lot of our trucks will never come to the freight that we move will never come in and out. The only freight coming in and out is specifically to it. That will be filling the warehouse in and out. That's specifically so. In general, right now we have Cambridge warehouse with 145,000 square feet. We do about 15 trucks in, 15 out a day, and it depends what kind of storage you go into. Is how much do you store? Are we storing some product that stays, or you have product that comes in and out? So we haven't completely identified what product we're putting in there. As far as hazmat, we don't do hazmat goods, and certainly that's been loud and clear. You don't want it, and that's an easy no-brainer. There's a lot of fish in the sea, so to speak, as far as product we can put in there. So right now, I would say we're going to be about 60% capacity when we come into there, with the ability to fill it up over the next couple of years to fill up the maximum office space we have. That answers it. Yeah, and there won't. Maybe we have a few trucks that will be domiciled there on a regular basis. But in general, our process is we don't store all our trucks. They cost a lot of money, so they're on the road. If they're sitting in our facility, that's not a good thing. If we have trailers not moving, that's not a good thing. So, yes.
Well, I noticed everyone talks kind of quiet. I'm going to talk loud. Name and address, please. Getting there. My name is Mike Zellick,
used to rent at Clare and Gordon. I now own at 66 William Street in Guelph. So I'm not I'm not close much on Aberfoyle, but pretty close. I'm the VP of Human Resources at Wellington Motor Freight. I grew up in a small town about 30 minutes from here, Glen Williams, which has a lot of the same qualities as Puslinch does. So I appreciate that. I actually really admire the sense of community and passion that both parties are speaking with here. It's all been polite and professional, except maybe when we said there'd be zero impact on traffic on Gilmore Road. I chuckled with that one as well. Alistair and Lisa, thanks for your presentation. It was concise, it was to the point. Appreciate that you didn't read the entire bylaws. I got a 9-week-old baby at home. I already missed bath time, but maybe I can catch bedtime, probably not. Anyways, also appreciate, it seems like everyone here kind of agrees Wellington's not a bad company. You guys are just worried about your sense of community, and I respect that a lot. One thing I want to point out, long before we ever had our eyes on expansion and moving here, we did a lot within the community from our current location. We won an award for the best float at the Santa Claus Parade. We did the coldest night of the year for Guelph Hope House. We do all sorts of fundraisers. We raised 25 grand for Colon Cancer Canada last year. Like we do a lot of good stuff. 100% in terms of trucking companies. If you guys have to pick one to move there, you won't find a better one than us. I get, you might not want one, but considering all the options out there, we would be for sure the best there. So I got a few notes here on my phone, just typing as I was going there. A couple other things about us, like we've won many awards for being one of the best fleets to drive for North America, one of the top 6 in Canada, the top 20 throughout Canada and the States. Lots of awards based on our company culture, our initiatives within the community. So again, lots of good stuff there. A couple of questions. Well, I don't know if I'm here to ask questions or not, but I heard people talking about the sense of community a lot. Is that specific to the neighborhood off of Gilmore Road, or is that Aberfoyle as a whole? Because I see, definitely concerns from that one neighborhood, but factoring other things like the creation of jobs and, all of our staff, there's something at the Change of Pace restaurant called Wellington, because we go there so frequently and support them. So, could be good for the economy in that way for sure. And again, with the land there, is it a trucking company specific that people don't like, or is it development in general where, whether it's us that buys it or someone else, here you kind of know what you're getting. If a car mechanic, a temple, a theater moves in there, is that much better? Is that going to be much less traffic? Does that make a big difference to people? I don't know, and I don't know how that process works, but it's something that came to mind. I thought I'd at least get it on your minds as well. Please don't interrupt. You can't interrupt from the gallery. It's specifically the industrial. So even with like the current zoning, I saw on this trendy pamphlet we got that, it could be a theater, a temple, a mechanic. I don't know, maybe those are better, maybe they're worse. I don't know. And one question for Mark. Are employees allowed in the truck entrance, or is that only trucks? Only trucks. Okay. Sorry.
There is a bit of parking for people that park at the warehouse. So people, there may be about 10 cars that park directly for the warehouse, but everyone else that works in the office must park at the other.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
The clarity around the county and access to the county roads, they mimic provincial rules, I would call them. So the county will not permit an entrance off of their road if there's access off of a local road. So we've had proposals at McLean and Brock that fell through because they weren't permitted an access off of Brock. This property has an existing entrance where the old train set and the greenhouses were. That's why they're permitted to use that one. And then the county is what I'm hearing from the applicant has said, well, you need to have a separate entrance for the employees. That's a county driven policy that is
proposing that on these applicants, so. Just want to be clear here on that one. Yes, I know it's a new policy. Irene, very good. Yourself. Oh, come on up.
I'm Bert Roberts, 30 Gilmore Road. Probably a very dangerous road. Paved, partially unpaved, usually punched, but I'm talking about the far end of Gilmore. Very dangerous. And if you come from Moffett, you know, you come to a T intersection on the top of the hill with two blind entrance ways. You got enough, just do a double take. You got to do a triple take because they're down there. My concern is if the project is done, well, that road, I know there's money in the budget for paving roads. Whether that would affect Gilmore Road and the traffic flow. So I don't know how many of your employees live in that area. Gilmore Road is, you know, you use it. It's a shortcut from any increase in Gilmore Road. I think Gilmore Road is and it's unpaved and right now. It's bottom and the township does their best to maintain it, but it's always in rough shape. So that's all I have to say compared to
The council is still funding and increasing funding to the Gravel Roads Improvement Reserve. We've done a study that highlighted potential roads and through criteria. Gilmore Road has received a lot of discussion. Challenges with Gilmore Road is the cedar trees and everything along the sides. There'd be a lot of impacts on neighboring properties. Right. None of those discussions have discussed changing the elevation of Victoria Road at the intersection of Gilmore. So is Gilmore potential for upgrading for paving? I would say yes, just as other roads are in the township. It has significant challenges for trees. I think it will have to be widened as well.
I think half the people on the road.
Well, that's the flip side of paving a road. It makes people drive fast. So, okay, Don. Well, I will, you know what, Don, I'm gonna do you, Don. And then I may ask, because it's 9 o'clock, if anybody has an urgency to leave, maybe prioritize them. If you have time and can stay, then we'll just keep working on the same process. So that way you're raising your hand, Leland. Don, you can come on up and well, if you can just use that deep voice of yours and holler, that would be wonderful.
My name is Ron Dave. I live in 54 Street. And I just want to say that thank you to the gentleman at the end on their resolution. Because my background is I worked for Environment Canada, the Atmosphere Environment Service. I was director of air quality research for a number of years, and I also worked for a consulting company, Ortec, which did air quality and management. So I won't go into the gentleman talked about all the concerns about diesel fuel and exhaust from diesel fuel, and I just wanted to say that I certainly totally agree with the presentation, and the concern would be we are on a 401, and the 401 is giving off a lot of air pollution as well, and we're going to increase that, and I agree. You're going to have to go somewhere, and you're going to put the pollution somewhere as well. And I'm just concerned in that area, the increase in air pollution that is going to be there. Somehow we could either mitigate that and try to reduce, because with trucks coming out, traffic, if you go up at in the mornings and in the evening and rush hour, we're back up on Been divided. So I just want to re-emphasize the concern of air pollution in that area. And I also want to say, with regard to groundwater and the concern with the waters, what people are saying is that, and also trying to have that balance in between industrial, commercial, and residential. You need to do that in order to maintain the community that I know people out here want to have. But I've been here since 1984 and just love this area and want to keep that cool community as best as we can. So thank you. I wish you well in your endeavor in your business, but I just concerned about where it's going to be located. Thank you.
Does anybody have a time restraint that they need to leave this? Or I can just continue with one, anybody else? I have one, I'm just kidding. Okay, well, let him work for the.
Thank you for accommodating me. Sue Stone, 42 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent. My first question is, I would like to know when all that was posted, paper, website, all the information, because my understanding is the first part of it was through an article. So we are reading the paper. So I'm not sure how it got missed. Shame on us if we missed it, because I think we could have saved a lot of time, money, your money as well, by getting this looked after much sooner.
I will just interject.
Yeah.
In today's world, I forget your name, which is Keegan. When Keegan attends,
yeah,
he's a machine. He gets wherever he goes, and that article is up within, hours, right?
Yeah.
So we can make a decision to notify you, and we're gonna post it on our webpage, and that guy beats us to the punch every time.
Okay, yeah, so I'm saying that's the earliest we got notice was through that article.
So that's a bit of the nature of things now, because we just had a meeting earlier today about Warren Park, and I didn't make it home, and people were telling me about my picture online.
Yeah.
That's how fast it's happening.
That's good. I'm just saying that's the earliest we got it, a notice, and we were reading the paper. So the other methods, obviously, we missed, or they weren't up as soon as they could have been. Secondly, I might be off base, but is there not a plan to extend the Hanlon to avoid the crush of the 401 and the traffic, not only of trucks, but cars? And now we're planning to invite trucks into this area. So I'm just wondering why it seems like an oxymoron to me that we're doing that to avoid traffic, to lessen the traffic, get it south of Morriston onto 6 South. Yeah.
So there's been a proposed Highway 6 bypass for decades.
Yeah.
We discussed it earlier today at our council meeting. We discovered it's going to be a little bit down a rabbit hole, and not another general's report that stated the minister's office, the MTO, the projects. We took some action. Most of the bypass, my opinion, is to divert not our traffic. Wall traffic from that is transitioning through our community. So we have these lands and the employment lands and the road networks to support our traffic. We're trying, Councilor Schools, along with support from this council, made a delegation meeting last term about the narrowing of the lane markings in Aberfoyle, trying to reduce traffic. That's because my traffic is coming from outside of our community.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah.
The bypass, if you look at the official releases from the government, is they're still supportive of it.
But those wheels turn slowly. We get it. And in lieu of that, heavy traffic could be diverted out the Hanlon.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. The other thing is the traffic, the impact on traffic on Gilmore, that one single family house built on Gilmore will have an impact with a two-car family. So to say there's zero impact brings the rest of the studies under suspect. I hate to tell you, but it makes them all questionable when that comes out as the result. The other thing is this UGDSB, Upper Grand District School Board, had a proposal for high school at Victoria and Arkell. that was supposed to open, I believe, in 2022. And I'm hearing this from my son-in-law who wants to move there, so this is information that I haven't confirmed. They are still delayed because of multiple environmental studies. And it was supposed to open in 2022, so I'm just wondering why our environmental studies are so quick and so limited, it seems. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, let's just grab in our notes. Are you interested in speaking at the podium? Yeah, you. That's okay. Thank you. Gentlemen, perhaps, sorry, I wasn't sure.
Good evening, Peter Duggan, 51 Gilmore Road. Things we haven't talked about children. Up Gilmore, there's several houses have kids. My youngest is 14, just 22. There's a couple families that have young kids before end of Gilmore. They walk up and down the street constantly. So traffic impact on Gilmore is already existing with speed. Gilmore is like the 401. With speed limit 60 kilometers an hour posted. I've clocked cars with a radar gun at 120 on my street now. I've had OPP called several times. I've asked them to park my driveway and catch speeders. So traffic problem in Gilmore already exists. Broad Road had a problem without the railroad route at Gilmore. That's a different. So chicane. You're going northbound, cars don't slow down to go around bound. They speed up. They go through the town of Aberfoyle at 80, 90 kilometers an hour. That's a 50 zone. No. So the traffic problem already exists. If you put an entrance on Gilmore, you're going to create another traffic problem. You're going to force cars out of Aberfoyle Mills, go the other way. So it's just going to put more traffic. Those residents actually drive at speed because they live in it. They appreciate it. And the 401 is the best. Gilmore is the access road to Victoria. I've come down my road and live in the parking lot. One end to the other, just to get to my house, 20 minutes, halfway down the street. So the traffic problem there exists. Just going to calm down and think of the kids.
My name is Mike Chardin. I'm at 90 Gilmore Road. And I get emotional when I've been there since 1993. And we built a house there and we love it there. And I'm very fortunate now. I have 5 grandkids, but I cannot take my grandkids for a walk on the road because I'm scared that they're going to get hurt. Now, that's with the traffic right now. Okay, and I agree with everybody about the noise, too much noise, too much diesel fumes, all this kind of stuff. But what we need is, yes, we think that it's a good company that they have there, but I think that they should find another place to operate. Thank you.
Stick to the gentleman over here, so I apologize. I'm here to teach first aid.
I too am going to speak loud because faculty for post-secondary as well as retired advanced care paramedic, and I had the privilege and the honor of serving this community. Mr. Mayor, questions fire. I am Mr. Chartrand's neighbor. My wife and I moved here more than 2 decades ago and raised our children here. So I'm not going to talk about traffic. You already know about that. Someone asked about the Morriston bypass, which is a big issue. Following all that, all these things have been brought up. I really do appreciate your company coming out and doing a presentation. Prior to this council, Nestle's wanted to have a well on Victoria Road. And they wanted to do a pipeline from Victoria Road all the way back through where Schneider's is. And we were not in 100 meters of that well. We were more like 2 kilometers, but we were in the zone of protected area, could be affected area. And we were invited along with all the other members in that area. And they had a red area, they had an amber area, and then they had a green area to have a meter in our well to monitor the volume of water. They did a presentation at Aberfoyle School, which we attended. That didn't go through. I forget the name, Mr. Mayor, you can help me. I forget the name of the company that came in. They wanted to build a huge parking lot where you take all busted up cars. I forget the name of it. It was called Car something or other. It was an American-based company. They came here and did a presentation. Same situation. The exact same concerns were expressed in terms of pollution, water quality, traffic, all the same concerns. And they took it on the chin, but they ended up not doing it. I too have heard great things about your organization and, fully support the development that's going on here. But I live closer to Victoria and Gilmore. And if you think Gilmore is busy, you ought to see Victoria, right? It's a racetrack, especially coming up to Gilmore. So I'm not going to get into anything else other than that. I do have one question. I'm really confused about protected wetlands. Because when we moved here in 2000, Article 2000, and we've got a managed forest, which I think is over 10 acres you have to have. So we do our part in trying to keep the ecosystem, and we have a water filtration system, which is awesome, which I'm very proud of. Anytime you want to see it, come on over, I'll show it to you. Can someone explain to me what protected wetlands are? Because my understanding, correctly or incorrectly, was one of the reasons why Nestle's didn't put the pipeline through was not only through community opposition to that, but it was violating the wetlands. I also believe when we looked at the survey, right behind Aberfoyle Mill Restaurant, that whole area was protected wetlands, but was rezoned. If I'm misunderstood, can someone please explain it to me on how and when you go through changing those wetlands? I'm certainly not opposed to Meadows of Aberfoyle. It's a beautiful community. They contribute a lot to what's going on. I think that's a sensible decision. I do remember the problems that is it trailer park? No, anyways, thank you. They had a problem with their septic system, of which then the township had to get involved with. And Sanitec was involved in terms of monitoring and going in there and costing all those members out of their own pocket, where they had to upgrade it. They just could not keep up with the flow of the raw sewage that was going into the groundwater. It actually affected my well. I have the evidence to prove it because I did the testing. So there's no livestock, but there was E. coli in there. So if someone could explain to me about the wetlands and how that protection works, I thought it meant, and I explained to me at the time, many years ago before we purchased the lot, that no construction can go there because it's considered an environmental safe area. Other than that, I agree with everything else that was presented. I want to thank the people of Meadows of Aberfoyle for, I am saying that correct, right? Meadows of Aberfoyle. You did come to our door and we would not know about it unless you put the notice in there. So thank you very much to you people for that.
Say your name and address, please. Oh, geez.
Wayland Polkin, 82 Gilmore Road. Thank you.
Here, do you want to address the comments here? Wayland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great question, Wayland, and it's not an easy answer because every wetland, much like us in this room, we're different. We function differently. This particular wetland that we have on the property, I don't know if you were here when I made my presentation, but it's at the back of the property. It is being protected. We have an environmental consultant on our team who has evaluated that wetland and has recommended buffers, setbacks to it. So in this case, we have a 15-meter buffer. So where nothing can happen within the edges and limits of that wetland to help protect that feature. So this is in this particular situation, there are many different classifications of wetlands. It's provincially significant, and then there may be locally significant or maybe unevaluated wetlands. So wetlands that people just don't know about, and just no one has identified it or regulated it by the conservation. This is considered a locally significant wetland and identified by the Grand River Conservation Authority. It is regulated. We will need a permit from them. The environmental study that we've done is being peer reviewed by the township's environmental consultant. But what we have found, sometimes some wetlands either get the water from either surface or groundwater, base flow, or it's purge system, and it's receiving its water by surface water. And so how do you protect it? The idea of how you protect these features, you protect the source of water that's either entering the wetland. And so either through the surface flow or that groundwater source, as I mentioned. Because it's not from groundwater and we're not drawing in groundwater, substantial groundwater, it will not impact that aspect. What we're trying to do with the buffers is maintain that catchment area. Most of the flow is actually towards from the east, from the agricultural lands towards us, and that is being maintained in agriculture, and those flows will continue. And ideally, the feature will be maintained. So again, I'm not an ecologist, but this is the Coles Notes version of it, and you're welcome to review the environmental impact statement that's online on the township's website. And as I said, it's being peer reviewed, and we're working with the township's environmental consultants to answer their questions. They've had similar questions in terms of the setbacks and how we can mitigate that. So hopefully we can come to consensus and resolution on that aspect. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
Okay. Coming back. Yeah, you bet sure just turn around. Oh, no. Yes. There you are. I assume you're the gentleman that spoke about the air quality. Yes, you want to speak? Yeah, you. No, you're beside you to your right. Go on. This lady? Yes. Yes. No, she had nothing to say. Okay, thank you. Everyone, guarantee one thing, you won't be. You want to see? I mean, answer. Okay, I'll give one opportunity for everybody else. So we talk to the owl. You can just speak normally. You could if you like, but my name is Peter Scott, 56 Gilmore Road. We've been there for 35 to 36 years now. It's the property right next to the original Edward Oil Spring water place. I agree with all the comments about the traffic at Gilmore and Brock. But my concern is the traffic heading the other way towards Victoria. If the traffic is forced out of the Meadows to turn left and go that way, or any of the employees or the traffic going in and out of this facility, that road is surprisingly a very well-used residential road. Pretty much any time of the day or early morning or evening, you'll find people walking on it, jogging, families out, dogs being walked all the time. You said you go the other day, maybe my dogs just out walking. The lady who organized the people who organized the petition for the Meadows, that's where they found us walking our dogs one day. And any extra traffic, it's tough enough sometimes just to get off to the side of the road as it is. So that's my big concern. The other thing, somebody just brought up about the protected wetlands. Are the wetlands protected already? But then we don't have to have this development to protect them. Is that correct? That's really all. The other thing is I don't mean to sound like I don't know this, but I don't. Are you our counselor in that area? So it's an at-large counselor thing? Okay. Thank you. Lady Burton, no. Barkley? Speak. Not making it.
Currently now, in section 11 for row 2. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for this. I do enjoy these exchanges of ideas in our community and having such opportunities like this. And I understand potentially with Bill 23, we may not have as many of these. So this is great to have, and I appreciate that. And appreciate everyone giving their opinions as well. Mine is more comments, more question. I did have a chance to look at the comprehensive zoning bylaw, and I see that to have a warehouse, you have to be zoned industrial. Does the site specific, does it work that you can add certain things in from other zoning classes?
Zach, you want to? Sure,
Yeah.
Chair.
Through the chair, usually it's accessory or related uses to the main use on the property. This use already, or the property already has a wide variety of different uses. We don't typically do that these days. That zoning is quite old on the property. But we can do things in the zoning like limit the scale, as Pierre mentioned. You can do things like require different setbacks, that sort of thing. So that's what makes it site specific within the industrial zone. So you're basically tailoring it to this site kind of things.
Well, I'm just curious because it is highway commercial now. If you're just able to have a site specific for a warehouse, it would avoid it being industrial, but not hypothetically.
Well, through the chair, yes, you could just add a warehouse as a use. In our mind, a warehouse is an industrial use. So it doesn't, like, it's the same difference either way.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Sure. What did you guys consider? Everybody's get a second opportunity. All right. Give everybody a second opportunity. Actually, it's more for you than anybody else, but I want to understand. And sorry, you Randy Moretti, 138 Aberfoyle, Mount Crescent. I want to understand is other trucking companies that looked at this property and they've approached the township and they were told it'll never probably go through. So. And I guess,
Is that the question?
yeah, and like, so why is it all of a sudden now being considered?
I will take a stab at it first. I will say, I have never heard of another trucking company approaching this particular property as of yet. I don't know staff.
I know
Well, just let me finish. Okay. Staff, I'll go to her in a second. She may or may not be able to disclose who has inquired about properties, but this one is a true application for zoning.
yeah,
So this is the first time I've heard about.
no,
so
I
this is what I thought.
they only approached the town and talked. I know they didn't put an application.
Yeah. So has there been other?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we often get applications through our pre-consultation stage. Again, for a variety of uses, and sometimes what happens through that initial consultation is perhaps the developer didn't realize the scope of work that was involved with getting the development permitted. So sometimes the mere fact that a planning application is required outside of site plan control can turn people away to look for other properties and different opportunities. So again, not knowing specifically what type of developments for this property over the years, it could just been very well that they weren't up for the amount of work associated with getting development developed on the property.
And the other thing, when you talk about the wetlands, you know, just think of what happened at the corner of the Hamlin and the 401. And we've seen how many years, what is it now, 3 years? They're working there, trying to clean that up.
They've been done for a while, but it was quite the cleanup. You guys don't haul.
No, but you drive by there, there's still petroleum in there sometimes. So I was just saying that we do have to protect our wetland.
That was a big mess. I agree. Lee, Pierre, you wanted to try to answer some of the questions?
Thank you, Mayor Sealy. I just want to take this opportunity, probably, I've been writing various today, got a lot of notes, and I appreciate the comments, and that's what today is about. And certainly this is not the end of the process. For some of you who haven't engaged in this process, and Mark even hasn't, this type of, I do this stuff all the time. And I must say that it's been a very open and frank dialogue, and very cordial, and I appreciate Mayor Sealy, who chaired a very excellent meeting. I think I hope everybody had an opportunity to speak, and we were discussing this, Mark and I, during the presentation. We are open to also having another session, an informal session that we would host, perhaps here or somewhere else, and we'd be happy to work with township staff to get that circulation list and to engage you, perhaps even bring out some of our other sub-consultants so we can ask questions directly of them with respect to the traffic, the noise, environmental aspects. So this isn't the end of the road. We're working with staff, township staff, county staff, with peer reviewers, as well as yourselves. So if there are things that come up, for sure, we want to address those. And as you've heard, the Wellington Group of Companies is a good corporate citizen. They want to work with us. They want to be part of the team, and not do adversarial about this. So hopefully we can come. Not everybody will be happy, but that's the area of compromise, right? I just want to clarify a few things though. With respect to the water taking, I wrote the comment down. I don't know exactly the volumes of water that is being taken. It's not a huge amount of water. We're not a water, and there's no washing going on. There's no truck washing. So the operation itself is not taking a lot of water. However, if it gets to the volume that is required for a permit to take water, then obviously, of course, we would be getting a permit to take water to do that. with respect to the noise, just because we have done a noise study and we're proposing a wall, it does not mean that you will not hear it. It just means that we are controlling it within, as I mentioned earlier, provincial standards. Okay, so there are certain decibels that are acceptable. So when I say there's, the noise wall will be mitigating it, it's mitigating to within what is acceptable. The same thing with the traffic. I should have qualified, and I apologize if that was misleading in any way, that there's no impact. It's not to say that there won't be traffic, that there won't be a change in traffic. It's just that these roads are designed to accept a certain level of traffic, acceptable standards. And based on the volumes of traffic that are projected, as well as background growth. So these traffic studies aren't taken in isolation. They're looking at what is projected in terms of growth and piling that in and saying that based on their modeling and analysis, the roads can still function. It's not to say you're not going to see change in traffic volumes. It's just saying that there is the way the roads are designed, the way the roundabout is designed, it can handle this development without any changes, except for that left turn, or sorry, right turn lane. But I think those are just some, the last thing on water quality. Just to clarify, we are not simply discharging stormwater off the property without any control. We can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. We're doing a few things. There's clean rainwater, roof water. We are intercepting and storing and infiltrating that back into the ground. That's clean water. It's not going on or the asphalt or anywhere else. It's roof water directed back into an infiltration gallery that we'll have on site. In order to control the stormwater from the parking lot and other areas, we have underground storage tank, but also a storm scepter, which is an underground system that controls and takes out all those oils and grits and lets it settle out before it's discharged. These are sort of best practices and acceptable practices that are applied across engineering in the world. So just wanted to clarify some of those points. But again, we're open to having this continuous dialogue, share some of this information. You've heard these reports are online, but we're welcome to reach out to you, have another one-off meeting. We don't need all the council here. We can do this amongst ourselves, bring our consultants. You're welcome to attend. But we'd like to do that so that helps you at least understand a bit more about the proposed operation. So thank you for the time, and I really appreciate everyone coming out this evening. It's been very helpful. Thank you.
I'm going to ask if there's anybody attending online that would like to ask questions or make a presentation. I don't believe we have anybody. It says 5 attendees, but as you can see, there isn't any names there. So just give us a moment to see if it's a glitch. I don't know if anybody wants to speak or raise a hand. All right. Now I will ask if anybody here would like a second opportunity to ask a new question or some clarity, need some clarification. So just raise your hand so I can get an idea. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's work from right to left. Right to left, right. And then start ourselves here.
One thing I would like, sorry.
For the podium, because it'll be recorded and uploaded. So we're trying to capture the audio when we upload it to the YouTube page.
All right, thank you. Something that I think would be very constructive is before a study is done, to have other stakeholders who, let's say, have an interest in this, some of the residents, to look at the planned study, what tests are being done or how you're doing it. Because sometimes these studies are commissioned, they are designed, but maybe there are some concerns by some of the residents around here that are not addressed by the design of the study that you're going to do. And I suggest that it would be very constructive to have maybe some other stakeholders actually involved in reviewing the proposed testing. Thank you.
on this way. I believe you have your limit then. Sorry,
No worries.
can you restate your name?
Absolutely, I was hoping you would. Lisa Ross, 101 Aberfoyle Mill Crescent, part of the Meadows Golf Club. Thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council. I have a few questions, so. One for council. I'd like to understand what our next steps. This is a community meeting and appreciate the opportunity for future discussions. We look to our elected officials to understand what the process is from here. So we can ask that and then I'll ask my next question. Thank you very much.
Yep, certainly. Typically, the next step would be that we work through the planning application and the submission and peer review. And then what would happen was we'd come to council with a planning recommendation report for council to review. There's nothing that precludes us from holding a second public meeting if required. The Planning Act only requires one, but again, nothing to preclude us from holding a second one. There's also nothing that would stop us from bringing more than one report to council, in which just increases the public's opportunity to come and speak and address council and the submissions. So again, normally it would be a planning recommendation report to council once we're at that stage with the application. Subsequent to that, we'd be making a decision and if there was a bylaw to be passed, but we can add in steps through the process as we see fit.
Okay. So I guess the question back to you, how do we ensure that there are second discussions taking place? Because it's wonderful to hear that you're hearing our feedback and there are adjustments being made potentially or looking at what this is. But we still don't have the details. We still don't have a defined plan. We still don't understand exactly what these are all commitments. We need to see details. And so we'd like to see the details of the next meeting. So I'd like to ask the from the council that we will have a second opportunity to do so.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think that internally staff can have that discussion and we've certainly heard that. And I think it very well could warrant that. We do need to be cognizant of the time frame that the Planning Act lays out once we've deemed an application complete. It is a short time frame, but again, working with the developer and understanding the needs of the community, it's typically something we can make arrangements for. So I think staff have heard that and we would take that back.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
You want a third question? If you have one. What you're referring to is that the changes through Bill 23 that once the application is deemed complete, the applicant needs to receive a decision or it can be appealed in a faster time frame. Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I think it was Bill 109 that actually implemented the time changes. I'm fairly certain, and there's some different changes within it, but it really has narrowed down the time that a municipality has to take an application from being complete to getting that council decision and kind of fitting everything within that time frame. But again, that's contingent on working with the developer. There can be some flexibility in that. And so I think we've heard that from the developer today. So again, I think it's something that staff can take back and look at scheduling. I don't know if Zach has anything.
Yeah, Chair. One of the things staff has marked it up is the change of the grades.
Sorry, could you elaborate? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, those changes in the province. So at a certain time point, municipalities don't get it in turn the part of the application fee. So we haven't, this application is the first one submitted to such in 2023. So the first one was because it came back January 1st. That's something we're also. Yeah, that's
okay. A question then, because I don't know, this is a new process for all of us. The sounds of it. When did the clock start? And how long do we have?
Yep, I can just believe we February 8th was when the council deemed this application complete. So I believe it's the date in May. But again, those timeframes are statutory, but there is some flexibility in it that the refund is it's required, but there's other aspects of the time frame, such as appeal by the applicant is a non-decision. If there's no decision by council within the time frame. So there's a few things that we need to be cognizant of as we move forward with this. But again, I think we've heard the request for more consultation. So we will work with the developer and staff to see how we can make that work.
Wonderful. And I'd look to this community to also respond. Do you want a second meeting?
So
Put up your hand, please. This is a question.
again, chair my meeting.
Yeah, come on. Come on.
Well, you can in 3.6 years. Next cycle decided.
You never know. You never know.
You never know.
Never know. No.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate, thank you. I would never want to share your meeting. I share enough. So, one other quick question, and certainly respecting others to ask further questions. I am not hearing the definitive number of the liters of water that are going to be required. And there's very clear distinction of what is required up to the levels for the permit to take water. Again, that's oil. We have to have that. Maple Leaf, a warehouse, smaller facility has to have that. We need details.
So if you're, I may just ask Zach to provide a bit of clarity of when a use requires a water taking permit, and we determine on the dry use if they're under that, correct? 50,000 liters per day.
Correct.
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, that's, it's in the township. We rely on a certain.
So they provide information that shows they require less than 50,000 liters per day, then they're not required to get a water treatment permit. So I don't know, Ms. Whitefox, who reviews that. I mean, I'm sure that's part of the application process. We just.
Township has a hydrogeologist as well as the county source water protection team. Both are active peer reviewers on all of our files.
So to give you some insight, I don't know if Zach has any tips on this. Wellington County is building a roads garage up in part of that construction process is what they described is capturing the rainwater so that it's used for flushing the toilets and gray water. So this reduces their water needs. So this is where I feel once he started mentioning it, it's along those lines. But as soon as they hit that 50,000 liters per 50,000 liters per day, then it requires a water taking permit.
But until the permit will state water, it's not monitored, and it has to be voluntary. So there is a concern. So I look forward to the second meeting. Appreciate the opportunity somebody to sit up there. Thank you very much.
We'll be here next.
Great comment. I have one question, and it's related to the storm scepter, which we have one of. Okay, so I know what it does. Our subdivisions approximately, that's about 15 acres, it's about the same size as the property you're looking at. We have a total sewer system running off our roads through 18 catch basins that direct everything to the storm scepter. Is that what you're planning on having? So like, because you've got a great big pile of land there, and there's going to be water going all directions. So you have catch basins all around it that drive it, take it to the storm scepter.
Great question, to you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. And I don't have the servicing plan with me, but again, it's online. And when you look at it, you'll see that network of storm sewers throughout the parking lot. Because of course, we got to capture that rainwater in the parking lot and direct it to storm scepter. The storm scepter doesn't do any good.
Thank you.
Just wondered.
Cameron McConnell, 97 Aberfoyle Legal Crescent. A follow up to Greg's point. Yes, we have a storm scepter. My question is actually, where does the water go after it's been in a storm scepter? I appreciate you have rainwater collection from the roof, which is better grade of water by a long shot. And it's going in an infiltration gallery that's in a different part of the lot. That's a real good thing. That's not the problem. That's not the water problem. The water problem is the water on the lot. And it going into a storm scepter doesn't begin to mitigate the problems with the water. Where does it go after it goes into the underwater tanks? Because I know it goes into the watershed. I'm not concerned so much about the small wetland at the back of the lots. It's actually the opposite direction of the water flow, both groundwater and surface water. It's on the other side. The rest of the watershed is in the other direction from the parking lot. Where does the water go after it's contaminated?
Dear Mr. Mayor, the water will outlet eventually into the roadside ditch on Broadway.
We're Mark and Kathy Goddard. We live at 4 Gilmore. We quite possibly might be the newest members of the community. Moved in October. Fell in love with both the community and our home the minute we saw it. Could I just get a clarification on when this proposal was first made public? Not so much how as to when.
Probably by the township or probably by my friend Keegan.
In any sense, and you'll understand my question in a second.
So when was the first meeting?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I believe this was brought to council on February 8th meeting. So that would have been in a staff report requesting that council deem the application complete. And that would have been the first time this would have been made publicly available, and then
23.
Pardon me? Yes, 2023.
I just wanted to make a comment on what you said that I felt was very heartfelt, that if you weren't welcomed here, you'd probably reconsider. Had we known when we moved here and for my wife and I, we made a significant investment in our property, had we known, and at 4 Gilmore, I don't know if you can appreciate this, your drive will be right across the road from our place. We wouldn't have bought it. We really wouldn't. It's that significant. I didn't want to come up for a personal reason, but I reconsider, but I don't know if that helps you reflect on it, but thank you.
Anybody else would like to approach the podium? Keegan considered part of the publication. If he needs clarification. All right, let me get to my notes here. Council, does council have any clarification questions regarding this application? Is there further information which the applicant wishes to provide? Great. So I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. I declare this public meeting closed. Council will take no action on the proposals tonight. Staff will be reporting at a later date with a recommendation for council's consideration. If you wish to receive further notification of this proposal, please email or call planning at westlands.ca or by phone at 519-763-1226 extension 4, or contact township staff during regular business hours. Only those persons who leave their names will be provided further notification. If you wish to speak to the proposal when it is brought before council in the future, you must register as a delegation with the township clerk prior to the meeting. And the last thing I will add is all of the emails that have been coming through to council. I have not been checking if you included admin on those emails. So correct me if I'm wrong, for them to be considered part of the public record, they had to be, the staff had to be included on that email. Now, I believe there's been, most of them have been forwarded, but I'd hate for one of your comments to not be recorded because we manually missed that you CC'd the admin. So I believe 22 emails have been forwarded to staff. It's looking close. I just saw him. I'm cautious to do this, but
Just a point of clarification. I did receive the notification, but I requested, but there was some ambiguity about where they should be corrected. That's what that did. And it also trying to cover all bases, and that's why we're setting off all the.
We can reset everything.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the same staff people look at both of those inboxes admin and planning. So if it's been sent there, we've captured it. Going forward, planning would be great.
If you feel that you may have missed it, just reset it, just sure. You should see my inbox. New Year's Eve. It's awesome. All right, well, I believe this is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Sorry for trying to keep